Welcome to We Design's Master Talk series. My guest this week is Jonathan Cohen, the renowned fashion designer, Parsons graduate, and embracer of sustainability through necessity and evolution as much as through personal passion. It's a great conversation. I hope you enjoy it. Welcome to this week's Master Talk. My guest this week is Jonathan Cohen. After graduating from Parsons, Jonathan went on to build his career as a fashion designer, and we're sitting here right now in his studio in downtown Manhattan. Jonathan, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. So tell me a little bit about what it was like at Parsons, but how that set you up for starting a career as a designer.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Parsons was this amazing journey from the beginning because up until then I had been sketching and, had been making clothes here and there growing up, but I kind of had suppressed that part of me. So I think when I came to Parsons, it just kind of exploded out of me, and I was able to incubate ideas for 4 years and meet people who would then become, very instrumental in my career and really create this amazing network.
You do hear that a lot, and of course that's what school is for. You learn things certainly, but you meet people and you build your network, as you said. So what made you decide, was there even a choice when you left Parsons that you were going to be a designer in your own right?
No, I mean, for me, that's just what I've wanted to do since I was little. And I always say that if I don't do this, I basically wasted my whole life thinking about it. So it's just I had to do it. There's no choice.
Yeah, you hear that, but I'm sure you find that from friends of yours who are designers. If there was anything else they could do, they might do.
Yeah,
but there isn't. There's just nothing else you can do.
Exactly.
Right. So it was the only possible path. And you teamed up, I think, with Sarah, your business partner, from day one.
Yeah, so we met our freshman year. She was at a different dorm and I was in a different dorm, and we just had mutual friends, and we'd always talk about how we'd start a company one day together. It was very an instant bond.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
So what was the experience like then, leaving Parsons and starting? How do you do that?
I think what we had on our side was that we were very young and naive. So that's how you really do that. You're just kind of you just go for it. But we had jobs and we were working, and we just kind of saw this void in the market that we felt we could come in. And we just kind of did it. Yeah. Wrote a business plan, planned it, and then, started very small out of my apartment with 12 printed dresses.
So it sounds really easy. Why doesn't everybody do it?
Yeah, no, it's not easy. I wish it was as well. I think that you're writing the business plan and you're like, oh yeah, this is just going to work like that, and then you realize, oh no, that it's much harder. Yeah, and it's still hard. Yeah.
Well, I think I'm sure that the situation is that you've done many things out of necessity rather than choice, because you just have to do them.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think where the theme of our conversation is around sustainable fashion, I suspect that necessity has driven you to think more sustainably.
Yeah, I'd say so for sure. It's necessity, and just I think as a designer, I'm always trying to push myself to really understand what's my purpose. Right. Why am I putting out more product? What am I doing that's really contributing to the world? So I think that's how I've always come to the table. So
it's a very good question, and I think asking yourself, what am I doing right now? How is my company running? Do we need to be doing these different things? When you're a small business, you don't have the option of wasting time.
Yeah, exactly.
People agonize over small elements of their company when in fact it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, exactly.
So tell me about the actual journey then. So what actually happens? Because the thing is, when you're doing it, when you've done it, you just think, oh, I did this and this and this, and it's clear to you because it's in your head. But people watching, they have no idea. Yeah. So you leave school, you buy some fabric, draw some pictures, make some dresses, sell them, get rich, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. I wish it was no, and it's still 8 years in, it's still these new challenges and these different struggles that you just don't see coming. But I think that's the interesting part about being a fashion designer and the fashion industry in general, is that it's always moving and evolving, so you have to become very malleable, if that's the right word, and be able to adapt to that, which I think is actually really exciting, and it's kind of what makes the industry so great, but also what makes it so challenging is that it's constantly
you can never
changing.
Relax.
No.
Yeah. I remember people graduating saying, that was so hard getting through that. Now I can start my career, and we're like, no, you can never relax.
No, you never relax.
You only got to do this now forever.
Yeah.
So on the subject of sustainability, I think it's a terrible word, and responsibility is a much smarter one. Yeah. And actually, being, I don't know, just not wasting, but not just trying to focus on doing the best thing you can. With whatever situation, and being efficient with what you're doing.
Yes, absolutely.
So how's that played out for you?
So I think when we started the company, without even using the word sustainability, we were always very conscious, and that's what we still say now. It's like we are a conscious luxury brand. You know, we like to know who we're working with, what's happening, who's making our clothing, and that just developed a lot more into how our textiles were being made, since I design all the textiles. And I love designing textiles, and I don't want to stop doing that.
I mean, they're exquisite, the prints that you do, but much more than that. And I want to definitely get onto the way that you've used previous textiles to create these new ones.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, it just developed more into like getting very into the nitty gritty of things and knowing where fabrics were coming from. And then also, you know, since we started the company out of my apartment, I always say like I was kind of living in the waste of it. You know, so I was living with all the fabric rolls.
So it's necessity again.
Yeah, living with all the paper and realizing like, oh my gosh, we're just going through so much stuff. And like, where's this stuff actually going when we get rid of it? And how can we control that? Because I was really losing sleep over it. So, you know, I just felt like I had this role to play where I'm like, I really need to figure out where all this waste goes and how we can stop it as much as we can and how we can utilize it.
Well, I think, so do you find that you incorporate that into your design? Because I know when we were at Parsons, we would study zero waste, which is, you know, a very extreme way of using every single piece of the fabric, no matter what, cutting the cloth in order to utilize fully the fabric. And that's not always possible. But you can certainly reduce waste. And that's something that I'd love to hear about from you.
Yeah, I think that's from the beginning with like designing prints. I was always trying to, I started learning that like some prints, you know, take up more waste than others. And then what we started realizing is that you're always going to have parts of the fabric when you like, I mean, it's kind of like a lesson in how production is, but when you start cutting these pieces, you always have leftover fabric scraps and leftover parts because of the shape of the pattern. And we started doing these case studies of how much we were throwing away, but also how much money that means we're throwing away. So you start to see, okay, this is going into a landfill because you just like throw it away. And then you're also throwing away money because every little piece, if you look at it from a business perspective, every little increment of that fabric is money. So I saw this, and Sarah and myself saw this as this incredible challenge of like, how do we kind of regenerate this waste? And how do we turn waste into something that's beautiful and still luxurious and, you know, kind of regenerate it into new products?
And I think I want to just pause for a moment because I know a lot of people who are watching this are very big companies. And they often come to us and they say, well, how can we do this? You know, we're this huge thing. And the fact is, any room that you're in, there's waste. So, you know, whoever you are, whatever you're doing, look around you. Look at, you know, and if you're the head of the company, then ask your team, where's the waste and what do you want to do about it? Why do you want to not waste things?
And I think what I always tell small and big companies is like, we didn't start like that. We didn't start like with this idea right away. Like we like developed into that. So for me, it started with like, okay, I sketch a lot. So I was realizing I was going through maybe 2,000 sheets of paper per season. And so I was like, okay, let me tackle that issue first. You know, like aside from like recycling the paper, which is great. But can we take this a step further? So I ended up like now designing everything on my iPad. Which, you know, I use Procreate, which is this incredible program. And people can't tell the difference between my paper sketches versus these sketches.
Fantastic.
And you don't buy supplies anymore. So it's all there. I can travel with it. So it, for a lot of reasons, it like even made my life much easier, you know? I mean, traveling with all these art supplies was like a nightmare sometimes.
That actually brings me to an interesting question, which is, does it limit what you do? You know, does thinking responsibly and using an iPad rather than paper and not taking your paints with you, do you find that limits what you do?
Absolutely not. I think it's a challenge, and I think that's what design is. It's like I think that's what inspires me, is like, how do I overcome that challenge? So it takes a little more time to figure out how to use the iPad and, you know, situations like that. But once you get it down, it's like, it's actually, I think, made my creativity so much better because it like sketching is so much easier now. And
that's a good point, because I think that, you know, you're as a creative, your job is not to carry paint. You know, it's to be creative. It's to channel whatever's in your head through your hand into making, you know, art. And so if you can streamline that process, then it connects your finished work with your idea more directly.
Absolutely. I mean, I think when I was at Parsons, that was the first time I like actually learned how to like design on a computer and do flats. But that was always hard for me because it was like the mouse, you know. But now that we have these like tablets with pens, it's like I have a very quick hand, and that's how I sketch. That's how I'm always gonna sketch.
Yeah.
So this iPad still can keep up with it, you know. So that's what's really made a difference. But yeah.
It's interesting. Some of the designers I've interviewed in the past, Parsons graduates, have talked about designing on napkins.
Yeah.
On aeroplanes.
Yeah,
I remember Benaz. She said that the only time she gets is on a plane, and it's always on a napkin. Yeah. And then she gave me one of them. She's like, "There you go. There's one of my fashion designs."
Yeah. No, it's
nice
true.
that we can move on from that.
We had, I think one of our prints at the beginning was like done on a napkin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how do you go from that to making the dresses? Now, you know, I want to definitely get to the fabric that you created using scraps and the trimmings that you create using scraps. And that's very demeaning to describe it like that because that's not what it is.
Yeah.
But tell us a bit about that.
To like doing full part, like
actually making the garments.
So what we kind of saw is that when you're going into production, you know, or in even sampling, you print or get woven fabric and you always have a few yards left over here and there. Sometimes the fabric mill will print way more, like 20 more meters than you needed. So we started seeing, okay, we have scraps and then we have like yardage still left from past seasons. So instead of selling it off for like $2 a yard, which it did not cost us that, what could we do to regenerate that yardage into new products?
Right.
So we came up with the idea of the studio, which is our direct-to-consumer business, where we take past seasons fabrics and prints and scraps and do new one-of-a-kind and small runs. So that's how we done it.
That's great.
Yeah.
And that, I mean, because a lot of some designers, I think, look at it and go, no, I can't do that. That was last season. You know, I'm moved on from there. And they think that their customer has. Yeah. But when we've talked about it before, that's the opposite with you.
Yeah, I was in shock to see that. Because that's what I thought. I was like, our customer is going to be able to do, like, get behind that? And the answer was yes. They do.
And you've got a very high-end customer.
Yeah. And I think because I design all the textiles, they don't lose their meaning. They're still very special. And so people still connect with them. But I think everyone kind of is letting go of that mentality of like, oh, that's the last season. You know, I think a good dress, good product, people will always want it.
The consumer's becoming more acceptable of sustainability.
Yeah, or just like, I think if you just don't treat it like that and you just treat it as a great dress, like they're going to want a great dress. Yeah. That's what they want.
Well, listen, if they want a great dress and then 2 seasons later they can get a jacket that matches that dress.
Exactly.
Then suddenly it's not redundant. That's a beautiful thing, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So tell me a bit about how you use the fabric that you have left over in the garments. So I know you make garments from the leftover yardage, but then the scraps.
So the scraps, that's been really an amazing thing to see because it's like a lot of different things that we've been able to do with it. So we've been able to partner with different like women's groups like Weaving Hands, which take scraps and weave them into new textiles. So then we were able to cut like skirts and pillows from that. Then there's other people. We worked with like a woman in Italy. Her company's Redizioni, where she's been doing this since I think the late 80s, where she took scraps and kind of used polyurethane to make these bags out of the scraps.
Right.
And then another technique we do with the local artisan is we take all the scraps and felt them into one new, like almost looks like patchwork textile. And then also what we did this season, we started doing knitwear with it.
So, but I think, and we'll show some images of this right now, but I think what's really important though is you would never think that.
Yeah.
That's the critical thing.
I am surprised with myself when we do it.
Exactly. I mean, you showed me a dress, which we'll have, I can actually see it over there. It's a beautiful black dress with pearls on it, a pearl design on it, and it's regenerated fabric.
Oh, yes. So that's, we work a lot with EcoNile, which they take regenerated nylon and fishing nets and then create new textiles from that.
And the pearl decoration,
they're upcycled Swarovski crystals, so
it's a beautiful thing. Yeah. And I think what's so critical here is that it used to be that if you did a patchwork, it looked like a patchwork. Yeah. You know, and if you were that kind of customer, then that's fine. You like it and you wore it with pride, and that was wonderful. Yeah. But there's no compromise anymore. Yeah. No. I think the way that you used scraps of fabric to bind the edges, it just looks beautiful.
Yeah, and I think that was our goal. Is that we always said it's not our customer's responsibility to care. In a way, it's our responsibility, and so my job is just to make beautiful pieces.
Well, I love the way that your company's grown in an organic way in every sense. Yeah, you know, being responsible and being efficient has driven you to this path of somewhat sustainability. because it just makes sense, and also the world is requiring that as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about the wider implications of that. What kind of help do you get in being, in thinking like that?
In what sense?
In terms of NGOs or organizations, trade organizations, because a lot of people talk about it, but I'm interested in who actually helps you.
I think the CFD was a huge help. I was able to be part of their sustainability program, which I was very fortunate. It was me and 4 other designers, and they basically set you up with mentors and even with all these different people to kind of help you get to where you want to be and also educate you on different aspects of what sustainability means. And it was that. So that was amazing. That was
they've embraced it. Yeah, they embraced it long ago, CFDA, which is great. And they're actually we go to them for a part of our program as well.
Absolutely. Also Parsons. I mean, that was the first time I heard the word sustainability.
Yeah.
So I've been really lucky to have all these amazing mentors along the way. Now I've mentored other people for it.
Right.
I think that's the key, is that everyone, this is like not an individual problem, it's a world problem, so everyone kind of like has to come together and help each other.
Mm-hmm. I think it's also an example of how you need the network. Mm-hmm. You need to meet people like Sarah's at the CFDA, Sarah Kozlowski. She was at Parsons before.
Totally.
Certainly in the New York industry, but I think increasingly in the global industry, everyone moves around, and you've got to make friends with people.
Yeah.
You've got to be engaged, and you've got to offer something in terms of your commitment.
Yeah.
And people they actively want to help.
And you have to not be scared of like educating people, and also not getting like that's like cancel culture. Like not getting so angry if they don't understand. Like educate each other and help each other, and like really lend out a hand, not to sound like too kumbaya, but that's the only way it's going to get better.
It is.
Yeah.
And you've got to be persistent. I remember in our conversations there've been certain retailers that you've been trying to hit.
Yeah.
And some of them take a lot of cracking.
Yeah.
I mean, in terms of just going back to building the business, the stories you've told me about going around the world to try and connect with retailers, but then you do it in the end.
Yeah. And then they become your biggest supporters.
Yeah, and you do it year after season after season after season, and then they're like, all right, you're persistent.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what about the bigger world of sustainability and what people are doing there? We saw Stella McCartney go to LVMH recently. She was always very outspoken about her own brand when she was with the Kering Group.
Yeah.
Now she's with LVMH. Are you expecting any changes there?
Well, I think Stella has been such a pioneer for it that no matter where she goes, she brings that message. So I think what I've seen from I don't know her personally, but what I've seen from her is that she's really willing to spread that message to others, and I think that's really important because she does have the resources, from what I know, to do these things, and she's also willing to share those resources. And so I think it's great that she'll kind of be able to bring that education and that knowledge to LVMH and their brands.
Yeah. Well, she's definitely someone that says what she thinks.
Yes.
And I think I love the idea that LVMH took her on because you're getting what you're getting.
Yeah, exactly.
She's not going to suddenly become corporate.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it's great. So I think that's a really positive move. I mean, wherever she goes in that sense.
Yeah. And you just became a resident in the Vogue Lexus.
Yes, well, we finished that.
Oh, you just finished it, right?
Yeah.
So how did that work out?
Well, that was great. That's kind of like...
So tell us about that as a project and what you did.
Yeah, so that was this really amazing experience. CFD came to us and wanted us to like take a look at it and see if we wanted to apply at the same time that we were in the CFD Vogue Fashion Fund. So we already had a lot going on. But
so the CFDA Vogue Fashion Fund you'd already applied for and were successful in?
Yes, and we were in the middle of it when the Lexus...
Which is like an incubator program.
And so the Lexus Sustainability with CFD, that started 4 days after the Vogue Fashion Fund. So we were kind of like, should we do this? And I was like, it's kind of now or never.
Yeah.
We either like figure out how to really take this idea to the next level and really work on it, or we don't. Or who knows when the next opportunity like this will come across. So it was I think like 9 months.
Wow.
Very intense. It was a lot of researching and putting plans together and really taking a look inside our company and figuring out how we're going to make changes. And it was great.
Well, I mean, Lexus have been dedicated to that for a long time.
Yes.
And I think that certainly they've been a big supporter of sustainability in fashion for many years. Did you have much exposure to them?
Yeah, we got to work with Lexus directly, and they had their point person. They were very helpful, but we got to go to Japan and to see, their God, it's like slipped my mind. Their cafe that
the intersect one.
The intersect. So, and they took us to all these places in Japan that are, focusing on sustainability and craftsmanship. Right. So they exposed us to a lot.
That's great. And there's so much information out there. There's so many. That's one thing actually that's very important here. There's so much information out there, and whether or not it's an official body, there are so many companies that want to help. Because if you genuinely believe in it, as you do, as we do, then you're mentoring people now.
Exactly.
And I remember when we were at Parsons, people would say, "Oh, how do I break into this?" And the answer is talk to people.
Talk to people. Yeah.
Get out, meet people, make it happen.
Yeah, and that's something that those programs really help with, because even being in the Vogue Fashion Fund, I think before that we were very insulated, and we just were doing our thing, and collection after collection. Then all of a sudden to be exposed to all these different people and all these different designers really helped. So.
And you produce mainly around here, right, in New York?
In New York,
right. So that enables you to actually get into the factories and see what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, some of the factories I've known since I was 19. I'm 34 now, so.
Right. You look so much younger.
I don't know about that.
but so have you seen those factories evolve in the way that they work? Because I mean, in some ways, it's ironic because it used to be a very sustainable industry in as much as everything was made here. Yeah. All the fabric and all the garments, and then all the retailing was done here, and all the magazines, and then all the consuming, and it was all this circular economy almost. I mean, not as we understand it now. But what have you seen in terms of the evolution of the manufacturing here in New York?
So it's gone through some hard times, I think. I think a lot of people move things overseas, and I'm starting to see it to change, especially with the climate of the world and everything's going on. I think it's always dangerous to put all your eggs in one basket. So I think you need to always have a few different places where you're making products. But I can tell you what we did with our factories, and they were very open to, is with the scraps, what we did is we gave them bins to put all our cuttings in the bins,
right? Which
really helped them, because then they could control our waste. We would take it from them. So you kind of working with them implement new ways of production.
That's such a logical, efficient, smart thing to do.
Yeah.
I remember whenever I've been in a design studio or in a production facility and I see garbage on the floor, I think, why? You can definitely do something with that.
Yeah.
Why are you throwing it away?
Well, also they loved it because they have to pay to get their garbage picked up. So it's also you're taking a problem that they're having off of their hands.
Yeah.
So I think it's just and we had to go in and explain what we're doing, and they were all very supportive.
Another example of just being responsible and efficient.
Yeah, and then working with someone to solve the solution versus being you guys don't do this, so we're not going to work with you.
Right.
It's well, how can we continue to work with each other and fix this problem?
Yeah, finding solutions.
Yeah, rather than just canceling someone out.
Yeah. And so how do you go forwards from here? So, you've been doing this now since you left Parsons, which was what, how many years ago?
I don't know. It was your first year, so I think that's so 2009.
Yeah, 9 years ago.
Yeah.
No, 11 years ago.
Yeah,
11,
my God. Jesus.
But I look much younger as well.
You look the same. I think I look older. But
I always looked old. But you've been doing it since you graduated, and it's grown and it's evolved, and you've got a huge amount of recognition, not least for those wonderful shoes you did, the Dr. Martens with the Swarovskis. Amazing. But people, you've been at it for a long time, and people have been paying attention, and now they're really engaging. So what's next? How is it evolving, and what are you going to do next? And particularly in terms of the way that you're sustaining sustainability in the company.
Oh gosh, that's it. Again, it's one of those things that I have these visions and these dreams. I want to open a store, and there's so many things I want to do, but the industry changes so much that I'm really just at a point where obviously we have a plan and we have hopes and dreams, and then it's just for me really being able to roll with the industry and the changes. And I think that's kind of, I look at it very almost day by day, year by year now, versus trying to get too far ahead of myself, because I feel everything changes so quickly that I just try to be very open.
People often ask me about the difference between the UK and the US in terms of the fashion industry and certainly education. And having been in both, it strikes me that we have an advantage here in that there is a concentration of the industry in New York City, including manufacturing, which perhaps is in London, but I'm not so aware of it, and I suspect maybe not. But it certainly is here. And so when you're at Parsons and subsequently, you're forced to be exposed to everything that's going on and the constant evolution of that. You can't just sit in a room and design and then send it out to a factory and not know what's going on there, because you've got to engage with it.
Yeah.
And you're engaging with the buyers and seeing how they buy, etc. So you have that, and I guess as we started at the beginning of the conversation, fashion is all about constant evolution.
Yeah.
And right now we're evolving, thankfully, into the much more sustainable model.
Yeah.
And I feel, this is about you, not me, but I can never shut up. But I do feel like sustainability is coming anyway. It's like a train, it's coming down the track.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised at some companies that are trying to blinker themselves to it.
Yeah.
You know, are you seeing other companies, other friends of yours, other designers responding in the way that you are?
I think so. I think, you know, again, we're so focused on what we do and not really on others, but I definitely see the conversations change so much, and you're seeing a lot more brands really focus on it and at least start to talk about it. And I think that talking ends up, you know.
Yeah, I mean...
And I even see, like, journalists and editors asking a lot about it and kind of demanding it. And also the way that magazines are, like, I feel like they're shifting the way they work. I feel like, so it definitely is happening in fashion.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think we're far behind some industries, but thankfully it's way ahead of others.
Yeah, exactly.
But then we have a lot to make up for because we're quite big. So the last thing I want to talk about quickly is advice for young designers, because, you know, you're still a young designer.
Yes.
But I feel like you've been at it for a while now.
Yeah.
You've been a young designer for a little while.
Yeah, exactly.
But what do you wish you knew when you left Parsons?
What did I wish I knew? I think looking back, I don't regret anything, which is great. I think I've always tried to live by, like, in 10 years from now, will I regret this decision? And I think that's how I kind of go through everything.
Yeah.
If the answer is yes, then I probably shouldn't be doing it, or I should probably relook at it.
But we evolve, though, don't we?
Totally. But I think that's how you can make your on-spot decisions.
Right.
And really, yeah. So I think that's, and just to be patient, I think that's something I've really learned, you know?
Yeah, I remember a student saying to me once, when I used to have tea with the students, I can't decide if I should finish the course or if I should leave now and apply for Project Runway, because I think I might be famous much more quickly. You know, like, I don't think anything happens very quickly. So
no, and that only gets you so far.
Yeah. Very good. Well, look, this has been really enjoyable.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. I'm super impressed with what you're doing. And
Thank you so much.
I'm really blown away by the organic, forgive the use of the term, but the organic evolution of your approach to sustainability.
Yeah.
You know, it's come through necessity.
Yeah,
And
totally.
if the people are going to take anything away from it, I really hope that that's what they listen to.
Yeah.
You know, the necessity of being efficient and responsible.
And start small.
Yeah.
Don't think you have to make 100 changes in 1 month. Like, just look at your company, see where you can make, like, an impact right away, and go from there.
Yeah. Great. Well, Jonathan, thank you very much.
It's
been a pleasure.
Thanks.
Thanks for watching. Now join us online and on social media with our experts so we can answer your questions directly and keep this conversation going.